Hello, traders. Cosavini coming to you from theclosingprint.com, January 20th, 2025. In this historic Martin Luther King Day Inauguration Day, we'll be looking at a bullish bias to start the week with the S&P 500 solid positive gamma to support markets, creating a green light of sorts for U.S. equities, resulting in 15 bullish indicators for neutral and 1 bearish to start Tuesday trading. In addition, most sectors are bullish, and European markets, along with the UK, China, and Asia, look good for a follow-through after last week's bullish price action. We'll start off Tuesday trading on a bullish bias above the 50-day moving average, keeping in mind that these positive gamma conditions are still mild and formative. We'll see options fill in the short term, but fundamentally this is volatility killing, and absent any exogenous shocks, IV should continue to decline. The only way that would change is if we drop below the volatility trigger at 59.30 for the S&P 500, 592 for the spiders, and 515 for the Qs. RSI is rising back above 50. MACD and stochastics have turned full-on bullish. And with the S&P 500 above its volatility trigger and the S&P equal weight index removing the top 10 stocks that weight the markets down by 32%, we are in a bullish state. All 5 days last week were bullish, stopping at the 50-day moving average. More importantly, the number of stocks above the 20-day in the top panel and the number of stocks above the 50-day in the lower panel have surged off of oversold conditions and look bullish going into this week. That gives SPY a bullish bias, RSI rising there as well above the 50-day moving average with its volatility trigger at 592. So long as we stay above that, we should see the markets grind higher as volatility contracts and moves lower. Here again, the Qs are above the 50-day moving average, which lines up nicely with the volatility trigger at 515. So long as we stay above that level, here again, we should see smooth sailing into the first week of the new Trump administration. The only outlier at this point is IWM. It is below its volatility trigger and the 50-day moving average, so we need to see price action get back above 230 with the volatility trigger currently at 227. Breadth is bullish. We can see the advanced decline percent for the S&P 500, mid caps, small caps, and NASDAQ in descending order are all moving higher, with the only exception small caps, which are flagging to the right, could rally higher. I'm expecting that to happen this week. Additional bullish indications from the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ McClellan oscillators, all moving higher and bullish, with the NASI summation index turning up, but not yet close to a cross, whereas with the New York Stock Exchange set to cross this week, with NYMO rising and bullish. New York Stock Exchange volume oscillator is bullish and rising from the green zone, not quite in the red or exhaustion zone at this time. And the New York Stock Exchange high-low indicator is back above the zero line. Histogram in the upper panel shows a bullish condition. New York Stock Exchange advanced decline is rising, making a new high for the week, with the index of 2,000 stocks giving us green elder sticks from Wednesday through Friday. Bonds, currencies, and commodities are all bullish for the most part, with junk bonds gapping above its 200-day moving average on Wednesday, following through on Thursday, closing above this key area on Friday. The importance here is investors that would take on the risk of junk bonds would not get into junk bonds if they felt the markets were about to roll over. This is a bullish indication and look for it to follow through. RSI is above 50, volume increasing, and all indicators are bullish. The key here is momentum. We have momentum in the 10-year yield fading back to the 50-day moving average. Overall, intermediate term above the 50-day, so that is still bullish. Once we see a retest of the 50-day, we'll have our answer in addition to commodities. At this point, we need to see commodities back off and move lower unless we see correlations change, with the US dollar also fading on Friday. That said, copper, a leading economic indicator, has rebounded over the last 3 weeks, starting in January, anticipating the new Trump administration as it returns to a bullish reversal and started trending into the new year. With the exception of yields and strength in commodities, these indicators are all bullish for the week ahead. Most sectors are bullish. There are some laggards in biotech land, but we did see a follow-through in energy, drill baby drill, financials, industrials, and more importantly, consumer discretionary continues to stay above its 20 and 50-day. We'd like to see that follow through. With the XLY-XLP ratio rising and bullish, a sharp contrast to the peak that we saw back in 2022. Most indicators are bullish going into this week. IBD 50, many of these stocks below. Note the 2 stocks with an asterisk next to them. We'll get to that in just a second. With most of the IBD 50 set up, looking for a follow-through, look for stocks that have stochastics rising in a bullish condition like BKKT. That's telling you to look for closes in the upper half of the daily range, so that's looking good for a swing as momentum shifts, moves through 50. Same thing with Broadcom, Arista Networks, with Court showing tight Bollinger Bands, RSI rising, volume increasing, MACD and stochastics are rising. This looks set to run. A stock that we've traded in the past looks like it could start going this week. Coinbase also looks good. Watch for Bitcoin to continue. Decker's Outdoors trying to break out of a range. Duolingo back above its 20 and 50-day with stochastics rising. I like this condition, looking for a swing and a follow-through. Globus Medical, continuation. Many of these stocks look really good for the week ahead. IBKR coming out of a base potentially. With Marex Group set to break out, a $30 stock looking very strong. Volume increasing, stochastics rising, telling you to look for closes in the upper half of the daily range as we swing higher potentially this week. On holdings, looking for the bounce off the 50-day. We finally got it on Friday, looking for the follow-through. Note the volume and stochastics rising. That looks pretty good for the week ahead. Quanta, Dr. Frank mentioned this one last week. Looks good. Robinhood breaking out. Royal Caribbean looks like a primo setup back above the 20 and 50-day. I know acceleration, you like this one. Stochastics is rising. I like it too. Looking for a follow-through. Shift for payments. This is one that I mentioned. Similar to Court Therapeutics that had everything set up. Looking for a follow-through. This probably going to gap up on Tuesday with Shift for payments not reporting until mid-February. Some really decent numbers. I like to see all 4 of these greens, but fundamentally this stock is performing. Earnings growth of 27.7% and revenue growth of 34.6%. This looks really good for a company that's a leading provider of integrated payments, processing, and technology solutions. Look for Shift for payments. to continue higher, breaking out of these Bollinger Bands with RSI rising, volume increasing. Stochastics and MACD are perfectly set up for a swing and a follow-through this week. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, January 20th, Inauguration Day. I'm cutting it short because I want to watch the processions. I'll send out a watch list later tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast. So make sure you check for that in your inbox later this evening. Have a great evening. Take care as we celebrate the 47th President of the United States. Take care.